What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today is an awesome day for Project Mixed Up Boss. Stay tuned and you're going to find out why. Well, if you've been following along in Project Mixed Up Boss, you've seen the short block, you've seen the rods, pistons, crank, and all that, but the one thing that you haven't seen is the most important cylinder heads. That's going to change today because this past weekend I went down to Greg Brown's shop, Hammerhead Performance Engines in Snellsville, Georgia, and picked up the cylinder heads for Mixed Up Boss. On the bench back here behind me, we're going to unbox these heads and you're going to get to see them for the first time and how they look and what we're dealing with. Okay, so here is the box that I've been waiting on. We have the Jessel valve train right here, head studs, valley plate right here, and this is the things that you get when you buy the kit from Greg. So let's take a look here. Talking about an exciting moment to be able to finally get these heads in my hand. Oh wow. Let's see here. Check this out. This is just unbelievable. So, alright, first things first. We're going to do a brief overview of this and then going to open up the rockers and see what we have and go from there. Okay, so what you're looking at here is a YouTube exclusive. This is the first time that you've seen in-depth look at the Hammerhead's Performance Engines cylinder heads by Greg Brown. Now, when he first set out to make these cylinder heads, he was looking for a head for the hot rod community, in the fact that he had about 13 years of experience working with John Cossey. And if you don't know who John Cossey is, I highly suggest you look up and you can learn all about him. But working under guys like John Cossey for 13 years and Charlie Peppers, he developed an immense rapport as far as working on engines, and he knew them inside and out. And you know, while Cossey was making plenty of cylinder heads, the Boss 9 stuff or the big block stuff, you know, there's people out there who were looking for a small block version, if you will, to be able to put Boss style cylinder heads on a small block Windsor and do it at a little bit better price. So that's where this was first came up with the idea. That's where Greg came up with the idea back in around 2011, 2012. So looking at this port here, you can just see that this thing is unreal. It just screams performance. Now, for all of the technical aspects, the valve angles are on 15 degree by 6 degree cant angles. Okay, we're looking at about a 63 cc chamber here. We just poured this head and we got 296 cc's of port volume on the intake and 102 cc's on the exhaust. Now, one important note, you know, that sounds really huge, but you got to understand that Greg, in his effort to make this head unique in the fact of being able to bolt a stock Windsor style intake to this head, he had to extend the head face out so that the stock intake ports would line up. So basically, if you were to draw a line where the stock head gasket would come, it would come right around in that area right there. And basically it's added about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch length to the cylinder head. One thing to note, even though that has been added, with the valve being moved from the traditional location of where the inline valves would be, so the valve would actually be somewhere in this area, it's now moved back, and so the length of the port itself is not much different than a stock Windsor at about 5.5 inches. I think it was 5.51 when I measured it out. Okay, so notice I've got valves in here. These valves were made by Exceldyne, and Greg was telling me that they have pretty much went out of business, and he still has a lot of these valves, and when he runs out, he's going to have to source them from another manufacturer, and I think he's going to go with Victory. But let's talk about these heads. You know, you see that they have just regular iron seats, but when it comes to building an all-out race engine, Greg will build you whatever you need for your program. Whether it's beryllium copper seats for forced induction, titanium valves, Inconel, whatever it is, he can fit a need. So I'm going to post a link to his contact information so that you can get in contact with him and discuss your needs for your project. And so now that you've got a quick view of the cylinder head itself, I mean, this thing is just a thing of art. I mean, it looks like a billet head, and it's not, it's cast. I mean, the exhaust uses a Yates style head flange, and we'll talk about that more in just a minute, but let's take a look at these rock arms and see what we have here. Now, this is another area in which you can have different choices. I think you can have anything up from a 1.6 rocker all the way up to a 1.8 or 1.9 rocker. So once again, if you have questions, you can get in contact with him to discuss your needs. For my engine, being a street deal, pump gas, we're looking to run somewhere in the neighborhood about 680 lift, maybe 700. We'll see what the head tells us once we get them on the Flowbench, because we are going to put these heads on the Flowbench and put them through the paces here at David Vizard's. Okay, got instruction stuff here. High pressure lube, extreme pressure lube. Let's see here. Right there is an exhaust rocker. You can see that it in its individual pack, and it's very, very well packed. Rocker stand. Oh yeah, billet rocker stands, the whole lot there. Okay, hardware. Here we go. Here is an intake rocker. You can see the difference. Alright. You're in the market to buy a top echelon cylinder head for your race program. This has been pretty much the standard for years. This is a Yates D3 casting. You can see right there. Vizard has these heads. They've been CNC ported, and they flow somewhere in the 430-ish range. And it's easy to see where the inspiration came from on a new head. You look at the chamber design and you see how it's shaped. And when you come over here to the new Hemi head, while it does have attributes of a Hemi design, it is basically like a twisted wedge that's been turned. This is a 2.20 inch valve, intake valve here, 1.65 there. Greg has told me that these heads out of the box flow very close to 400 CFM, which is really, really good considering the port volume. I mean, these things are going to deliver the goods, and I can't wait to get them on the Flowbench, get them sorted out, and get them put on Project Mixed Up Boss. But this is basically the predecessor. This was where the idea came from. Now, if I was to tell you that this head started out as this head, would you believe me? To hear Greg tell the story of how he developed this head is just unreal. He basically took one of these heads, because he knew that the bolt holes had to be lining up. He sliced it in two and welded about a 2-inch billet plate to it, and then cut out the combustion chambers. And he did all of this work until he created the picture that I'm getting ready to show you right now. This was his prototype head that you're getting ready to see. Pretty awesome, isn't it? To know that this head came from this one, in a sense. Now, we're going to be trying to make, with Project Mixed Up Boss, with my tunnel ram setup, 2 carburetors, we're looking somewhere in the neighborhood of around 750 horsepower. That is the goal. It's going to be 429 inches, thereabouts. And so this is just part 1. You're going to see these heads on the Flowbench, and we're going to give more detailed breakdown as we're doing it. Having a cylinder head with this setup is you're going to require a custom piston. We already know that I'm going to have to take out the inline valve Molly pistons that came with the 427 short block. Here is the piston that's going in it. It is a diamond piston, 2618 forging, and you can just see that it's a thing of beauty. Has a 15.5 cc dish in there, and it's going to give us 11-to-1 compression when it's all said and done. So this thing is really going to be awesome. It's going to run on pump gas, and hopefully it's going to do everything that I could dream of, and plus it's going to have the ultimate look of being a Boss 429 Windsor. Well, there you have it, folks. The very first YouTube exclusive of the Hammerhead's Performance Engines cylinder heads for the small block Ford. These Hemi style heads are going to deliver the goods, and stay tuned to the channel because we're going to get them on the Flowbench, put them through the paces, and see how they stack up against their predecessors, the D3s, and maybe even some SC1 heads, and maybe even some SB2 stuff of Chevrolet. See how they stack up. So until next time, this is Andy from Unity Motorsports Garage. Catch you later.